The African Development Bank today put together a panel of industry experts and investment professionals to discuss the roles of multilateral development banks in uniting to tackle cities and climate action on the African continent. The event was held at the African Pavilion, was part of the COP27 UN Climate Conference, now heading towards a close in Egypt. Let's take a listen.
We here are like a team of organizations working on climate action in cities, and another part of that team are the private sector who we collaborate with. In fact, the EBRD as a bank, our mandate is mainly focused on private sector investments, and most of our investments across the whole bank are private sector. In the public infrastructure space, of course, that's more challenging. And about 35% of our investments are with private sector. I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing with the private sector in our Green Cities program, which is a program of the bank to foster climate action in cities, as the name suggests. One of the examples is here in Egypt, actually, 6th October City, where we have financed a dry port facility just close to Cairo, and that was through a public-private partnership. And I mean, I think it was the first public-private partnership in the sector, and it's going to lead to something in the order of 40,000 tons of CO2 mitigated per year. So it's a significant project, and that was complemented by some technical assistance with NUCA, so the New Urban Cities Authority here, as well as the 6 October City themselves. So we cooperated with the private sector, but also with the government to provide technical assistance on environmental challenges and on gender inclusion. There are other private sector deals that we've got underway at the moment, another dry port and a desalination plant, all of those public-private partnerships. And I guess the question is, what can we as MDBs do to foster the private sector engagement? Because let's face it, the capital of even all of our banks together is not going to solve the climate challenge in cities. And I think one of the things that we're all doing is fostering the public-private partnership approach to finance, both with technical side and legal side. And through EBRD Green Cities, we also have these Green City action plans, and all of the actions in those, we work with not just co-financiers from the other MDBs, but also with private sector to identify where the potential is for investment action to be invested and have investments from the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. And so we've heard about cooperation amongst MDBs with the private sector. So I now want to move on to Stephen from the European Investment Bank. You've been working very closely with city networks in your approach to climate action and with local governments. So we'd like to hear a bit from you, building on what you've heard from colleagues before about your approach to working with city networks and what's the added value of doing that. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yep. I might just bring this up here, actually. Yeah, so EIB has a very good and close working relationship with the city networks. That's both inside and outside the EU. For example, inside the EU, we work with Eurocities and the Council for European Municipalities and Regions. And outside the EU, for example, we work with C40 and the Global Covenant of Mayors and I always get this acronym wrong, ICLEI, which is the sustainability group. And we see them as being very valuable, actually, very valuable indeed. And I would say, I think I speak on behalf of all of my MDB colleagues here. I would say that there's a true partnership building with the city networks and between all of us. One initiative where that's especially the case, I think, is the City Climate Gap Fund. And this is where we provide early stage, upfront technical support for developing countries in preparing climate smart urban projects. And I would say this is a true partnership because, of course, we're implementing it with the World Bank. And in fact, it was the Covenant of Mayors that pointed out that there was a gap in the project cycle that needed to be filled. And this is the very purpose of the GAP Fund, is to go right in early stage and help them prepare the projects. So what we're doing with the World Bank at the moment is, I think we created a partnership forum. And this provides a space where the city networks and donors and other partners can get together and discuss some of the key horizontal themes that are relevant for project preparation, capacity building, knowledge sharing, lessons learned, all these kinds of things. And I think that works well. And on the EIB side, actually with funding from the German and the Luxembourg governments, we are implementing the GAP Fund through a partnership with GIZ. And here we've set up a specific collaboration with ICLEI. And the purpose of this is to set up a community of practice, if you like, for selected cities that have accessed the funds for help and support beyond the end of the GAP work, so through into project preparation and implementation. I think this provides a forum, again, for knowledge sharing and so on and so forth. So I think it's working really well.
Thank you, Stephen. And we're very happy to collaborate with EIB on the City Climate Gap Fund. And we welcome people to apply to that. Cities can apply directly on the EIB or World Bank joint website for the Gap Fund.